absolute pleasure to have all of you joining us this morning for our 5th episode of the Chief Disruptor Breakfast Club Pivot Don't Panic. We have Tom this morning joining us as our guest disruptor. Tom is the founder and director of the Auction Collective. He started out as an art auctioneer at Christie's and then decided to set up his own art auction business to make the market more accessible to first-time buyers and up-and-coming artists. Lockdown has obviously meant a considerable shift for many of us, but for Tom it's meant a reinvention of the experience of being at an auction onto digital and online platforms. So Tom, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
So today we are looking at how to know when you need a strategy revamp, as businesses around the world are trying to pivot and rethink their strategies in a completely different world. As Emma said already, as Tom and I dive into these questions, I encourage you to put any questions you have in the Q&A box, and we'll come on to that later on. So if you have any thoughts while Tom and I are chatting now, please do put those questions in the Q&A box, and we'll come to those later. So Tom, thanks again for joining us this morning. Would you like to just kick off by telling us what the Auction Collective is, how it's different to what we might consider an art auction is? So over to you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me to join. I'm very excited and honoured to be here. So the Auction Collective, we run pop-up auctions. Well, we used to run pop-up auctions of emerging and independent artists. The mission was to open up the art market and the art owning experience to more people, both artists and also buyers. Our focus has always been on the millennial crowd, the next generation of art collector, and countering the trend of a lot of businesses and also auction houses in the industry. I firmly believe in the fun and excitement of an auction, and that experience is something that should be more available to the next generation buyer. And so, countering the trend to put everything just online, we would always run pop-up auctions, physical auctions. We'd embraced digital technology to make our auction smoother, and we invented the world's first downloadable bidding paddle. But we always have a physical event, physical exhibition, and a physical auction. The millennial crowd are, as a millennial, an experience-loving, Instagram addict, social media crowd. The EasyJet, Airbnb, I'm going to disappear to Denmark for the weekend generation. And so we had huge crowds that used to turn up to our auctions and get really excited about bidding, and would have music, drinks, and it was a lot of fun, opening up the art market and auctions to more people.
And when lockdown hit, everything changed. People couldn't come to auctions anymore. And that aspect of the physical experience and the face-to-face experience with the excitement of bidding, that all changed. How did you then kind of try and maintain that excitement of an auction in moving it online?
So there's two elements as well. There's one is the auction itself, the physical auction, which, and a bit of a confession here, I am totally biased for auctions. So anything that people might ask, I am probably going to be heavily in favour of auctions. There's the fun of the auction, and I believe it's the only luxury retail experience where negotiating the price of an object and paying for that transaction is fun. You know, in an auction, I'll turn to someone and say, would you like to pay more money than the other person? And people celebrate and get very excited and wave their hands. It's the only fun part of that transaction. So there's the element of the auction, but also the aura of an artwork. I'm a firm believer in seeing an artwork in person can change your feelings about it for better or worse. So that we didn't lose that physical experience for both of those elements, we created much more interaction and social media content with our artists around the artworks. A lot more behind the scenes photos of the artworks in the studios, on the walls, so people could really get a feel of them. And then, seeing this image here, we then partnered up with a platform to live stream the auction via video link, and people could then click to bid in real time. In our normal auctions, we have bidding in the room, we have bidding on the telephones for our international bidders. We have about buyers from 12 different countries at the moment, and absentee bidding, where you put in your maximum bid and the auctioneer bids on your behalf. We had the live streaming, which was brilliant, and that looks very professional. That's the reality, which was me behind our drinks cabinet in my flat in London, and my wife, who was 9 months pregnant at the time, actually sitting here taking bids from people over the internet. And the big screen in the middle was actually a Skype call with two colleagues who were at their homes in London, telephone bidding with our international clients. So they would wave on that Skype screen to me, and I would then be on that webcam sending things back. So it was a bit of a, well, you can see the duvets, and the floor was lined with pillows and duvets to try and reduce the echoing sound. But that was how we recreated the fun of the auction. And it's not just, because our auctions are social events as well, we also encouraged all our viewers, and we had 300 people tune in for the auction. We encouraged them to get on social media and share what they were doing and where they were. And we had so many funny pictures of people drinking wine, having beers, like watching the auction, having the event at their home. We even had one person send a photo of their laptop on the loo whilst they were giving their children a bath, because they didn't. So it was really fun. So it created this community online of people being like, oh, we're tuning in, we're watching the auction, it's a fun event for a Saturday evening during lockdown.
And I guess, I mean, I'm seeing with my group of friends at the moment, everyone's very keen to do pub quizzes all the time and that sort of thing. I think people are very much trying to find that social connection online in the digital world. But how did you kind of get the buzz going around your auctions, your online auctions in the first place? Was it just a case of transferring it, or did you have to do something new to get that buzz?
Well, we're always working, even pre-pandemic, we're always working to create that digital buzz and interaction online around our auctions. In the days when we used to have physical exhibitions, it sounds like very dramatic that, but you know, a couple of months ago when we used to have physical exhibitions, we would also do a VR scan of the gallery that we would then send to all our international buyers so that they could see the artworks in person. And to create the digital excitement around that, we used to have fun games like, we used to hide a picture of Andy Warhol in the gallery, and we used to play a game called Where's Warhol and launch that on social media. And you'd get, you know, hundreds of people just heading through to the virtual reality gallery to find Andy Warhol. So we've always done that digital promotion to create the buzz, but particularly for this one, the biggest way that we could get engagement and people on board was actually going to our stakeholders, that were the artists, and really encouraging them to, you know, giving them clear messaging on what we were up to and getting them to shout about it and bring everyone in. And it became a real, I don't know, celebration of community over pandemic restrictions. It was a really lovely moment, which again, for something that's luxury retail is quite strange. I don't think you'd have that in many other retail spaces where the whole community gets together and starts celebrating the success of an online gathering.
I mean, that's great. Just a reminder to everyone who's listening, while we're having this chat, please do feel free to put any Q&A questions into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll come to those in a bit. But just coming back to that, I guess one of the things that many businesses are struggling with at the moment is trying to match the consumer demand for the online and the digital experience versus the reality it takes to actually set that up, especially if you're a smaller team, and reactions have to happen really quickly. So how have you dealt with that kind of finding that balance between doing something really quickly and actually doing it properly?
We've just been quite open and involved our stakeholders, our artists and our collectors from the very beginning. So sounds quite, it doesn't sound very civilized, but we've just kind of winged it. And when we've winged it with our buyers and our artists involved. So as you saw with that shot of what the reality was like, we shared that with our artists and our buyers, so we could say, look, we are really determined to keep our mission to support emerging artists and help first-time buyers get into the art market. And we don't have the solutions yet, but we've got one kind of patchwork solution that we can do as a stopgap before we actually get to the real thing. And a big challenge we faced for this one was shipping artworks. So we sold about 60% of the artworks, but then trying to get those artworks to the buyers, we're still working on now, a month later. But the buyers have been really understanding about the current situation. And as long as we're updating people the whole time and being open about where we are, then they've actually been really supportive.
I guess communication, we've heard repeatedly actually on this series that communication and transparency with your customers is just really important, because actually everyone's in this situation, everyone's really understanding, but it's about maintaining that communication. When we're, I guess, thinking about life after lockdown, whatever that might look like, there's obviously, I mean, everyone's quite excited to go back to the pub, go back to restaurants, and start picking up normal life again. Do you think that digital auctions and these virtual events will still have a place in that world, or do you think people will just want to go back to how it was before?
I think there'll be an element of both. Nothing we are developing now. We are now as a result of the success of the last auction, we're now putting a lot of money into developing several different e-commerce strategies, including much better live streaming, online only auctions, and more online interaction and e-commerce. But nothing we're designing now is not future-proof for post-pandemic, because we're going to look back on the pandemic. It's going to be a really interesting moment in the history of the business, but it will be a moment. And there's no point putting tens of thousands of pounds into something we can't use in the future. One of the things that we've done from the very beginning is involve our artists and our buyers on the development of the business. It's a wonderful thing to take them out for a drink after the auction and be like, so what can we improve? What did we do wrong? Come on, tell me how I can design something that you will enjoy. And so as we're building all this, we're still getting their feedback for what it'll be like post-pandemic. But with the solely digital and live streaming auctions, I think there will be a place for them. It won't be as frequent as now. People do love the in-person events. But in the same way that House Party or Zoom will still have its place post-pandemic, people have now got used to it. And there'll be other things that force our hand that mean we have to be solely online. I remember the disruption of the ash cloud back in the day from the Icelandic volcanoes that wiped out huge parts of the auctions when I was at Christie's. It stopped so many people coming and artworks moving around. There's all sorts of, I won't go into all the grim details of all the things that can force us to go online again, but it will definitely be there as a backup for things as well.
And I guess when we're not sure and we can kind of make these predictions, but we don't really know, how have you found like being a business leader in this time and making those decisions quickly and actually responding to what you're seeing happening around you?
It goes back to what you're saying with communication. This is being open with the team the whole time and keeping. we've got a rather boring mission statement within the office that's just be normal. So if we've got a problem coming up, just be normal. Let's talk about it. If we're trying to solve a problem, let's be normal. How would it work in the rest of society? So one thing we're always doing with the team is putting out different scenarios of what could happen and then updating constantly, even if the update is there's no update. So people know where we are. And then when we can make a when we need to make a snap decision on the auction. So we went from, I think within a week, we went from, we were going to have the auction, right, we're going to have the auction, but no one's there. We're going to have the artworks, but no auction. Now we can't have the artworks, now we can't have the auction. So, but keeping everyone in the loop the whole time meant that we can make those decisions really quickly.
I mean, I guess that comes back to the fact that this whole series is called Pivot, Don't Panic. We don't want if you start panicking, then you can't see clearly enough to make those decisions and lead that business.
Yeah.
Coming back to kind of the ideas of leadership at this time, what would you say to other business leaders who are having to pivot and make decisions quickly, but also keep their teams motivated? What do you think are the important qualities to be a strong leader at this time?
Communication is so key. Honesty is key. I don't know whether it's worked, but with my team, it's, if we don't know what we're doing or we don't have a solution, it's honesty. It's like, this is certain, we don't know about this, we're looking for ideas, can you guys help? And getting the team involved to help actually guide the business. Honesty, communication, and scenario planning. It seems silly at the time, working out all these different scenarios when only one of them is going to become a reality. But when it does become a reality, you're so much better prepared. There's a brilliant, what is it? Poor preparation prevents, perfect preparation prevents piss poor performance. That is one of the best ways to do it. So preparation the whole time.
That should be, I kind of want to steal that tagline. I like the alliteration. So you obviously you've got your small team and everyone's working remotely like the rest of the country. How are you keeping them on track and organized and motivated? You've already mentioned stuff about getting everyone involved in those conversations and scenario planning. But what has kind of been your go-to as someone who's leading from the front?
It's getting people involved in business as usual as well, more than ever. So we have our Monday morning meeting, which is our hour of the weekly catch-up. But that is actually led by a different member of the team each week, so that they've got their hour of being in control of the company and they can do whatever they want, apart from raid the bank account. It's a minor caveat we don't let them do. And they can come up with ideas, they can run it how they want. And so they feel much more involved, and as if they were, it's very easy to just sit and control everything from the HQ. But when you let them take the lead on it, it's much more exciting. And then we have our daily 9 a.m. check-ins as well, which is often nothing to say, but it's the fact that we're seeing each other's faces and saying nothing is perfect.
It's good to start the day with seeing other humans.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we'll move on to the Q&A now. Thank you to everyone who has sent in questions. So we'll just start going through those now. But the first one, just to kick us off, this series is called Pivot, Don't Panic. And it's all about what you've been talking about so far, Tom, that whole idea of trying to respond quickly and yeah, I guess like carry on and like you're saying, be normal, whatever normal means. But what to you does pivoting mean? Is it creating something completely new, or have you just found it to be working in a slightly different way?
There's been live streaming of auctions, doing more online has always been something that's been in the pipeline in our strategy to do. Pivoting has been, for me, has been reordering that and tweaking it as we go along. So the live streaming of auctions was supposed to be a 2-year plan. That we're now going to be doing fully up and running in slick format within the next month. But it's also listening to what our buyers are interested in and seeing other gaps in the market. So we do, as an auctioneer, I do a lot of charity gala auctions, black tie dinner, and then at the end of it there's an auction to raise funds for a charity. So we've seen with our commercial auctions how well they've gone online, but actually all these charity auctions that are not happening anymore, they're now looking for a solution, and we've suddenly seen this opportunity to use our live streaming for them. So we're developing something now that can be much more useful for them as well. So it's reacting quickly to that. Yeah, and then the biggest thing is reordering what we're doing, and just seeing what sounds, I don't know why it sounds ruthless, but seeing how we can make profits now whilst the rest of the profit making side of the business is actually on pause.
We've just had, this might be a nice little encouraging thing from Sean Taylor. He says, well done, Tom, sounds great. So there you go, your Tuesday morning encouragement. We have a question here from Andrew Mann. Thank you, Andrew. He's asking, what are the behaviours that customers are enjoying and finding emotionally engaging in lockdown and life in a time of Corona? Do you think will stick for the short term and for the long term? So we've kind of chatted about this already, but
one thing we realised with when we live streamed the auction, we had 300 people tune in. Normally for our auctions we have 100 to 200 people that actually turn up to the event. So we already had more people than normal. And speaking to those buyers, some were saying, oh, we've always wanted to come to your auctions, but we never had the opportunity because we've got children, because we actually live outside London. And so that distant engagement is something that will definitely stick. I think more people will be, if you're not in London, if you're not in events, then you can tune in on your Saturday evening and get involved more so than normal. I think the socializing online will actually compete more with Netflix than previously. So I think that will stick. I think that the social media openness, I suppose, more public showing of your private life is much bigger than we have normally with our buyers. You know, normally with buyers, most buyers want to stay anonymous and keep their purchases secret, and they don't want to be bombarded by galleries who say, oh, you bought that in an auction, can we sell you this and this and this. But we found with the behavior has changed as our buyers don't have that opportunity to show people what they bought or be in the auction. They're now showing it more online, which is then putting a big kind of digital footprint of what they did. So I think that the openness to share your private life on social media has increased with our buyers, and I think that will stick because people are seeing, if you put a post up of a thing you bought at an auction, you get 200 likes on Instagram. Yeah, why wouldn't you keep doing that?
It comes back to what you were saying earlier about the demographic of your audience being millennial and Instagram posting and Denmark city break, weekenders. But we have a question here about your audience. Do you think that the demographic of your audience will change as a result of lockdown and the changes you're making at the moment?
I think it's certainly widened it because we know where our audience are. With our physical auctions, we do online marketing, we do physical marketing, we have the auction itself, we have the event, we have lots of partnerships with other businesses and organisations to host events in our auctions to bring new people in. But now, with everyone concentrated online, it's much easier to find everyone. And we're getting much more interaction and engagement online than we would. Whether the demographic has changed, I don't think it has, because we are still millennial kind of focused and driven. But it's certainly widened, and we've got many more people involved as a result, which has been interesting. Although I wouldn't wish for a pandemic every time just to increase our numbers.
Thank you for that. I'll just quickly say again to anyone listening, please do feel free to add questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen if you have any thoughts, any questions that you have for Tom at the moment. Just stick them in there and we'll come along to those as soon as we can. So we've got another question here, which I think is very interesting. What do you think larger organisations can learn from smaller organisations as a result of lockdown?
the biggest thing I think is not to be afraid of winging it. These are such rare circumstances, these are such extreme times, that it's totally acceptable not to have a pandemic plan for your business. So I'm trying to think of an example, but you've seen lots of examples of big businesses or startups changing their voice, changing their communications, and being much more open about, we want to get you some amazing food delivered to your house. We don't know how yet, so at the moment we've enlisted all the help of our friends and family to come and do the delivery, or something like that. It's completely off-brand, and it's completely away from the corporate slick vision. But the consumers, the people sitting at home, A, they want your product if they're your fans, and B, they know that these are exceptional times. So I think it also shows the human side and the passionate side of people. Again, going back to my favorite phrase, the normalness of businesses. If you kind of just relax, take a deep breath and say, this isn't going to be slick, there are going to be tapes and staples around the edges of this solution, but it will help get our product there. And if we communicate it in a way, it can actually do us good and show that we are a normal business that's trying to do the best in these trying circumstances. But know that your customers will be on your side as long as you are good to them.
Just on that, actually, in our episode last week when we were talking with Laurie Beck, who's from Coty, she was talking about how customers are really wanting to see normal advertising still. So I think that's definitely something that is coming up again and again, about people are almost a bit sick of hearing about everything that's happening. They actually just want an element of normality back from the businesses they interact with. We have another question here, which is about looking forward again into the next year. How do you think you will grow in the next year, and what do you think your business will look like in a year's time?
World domination and huge success is the plan. The business will grow. We'll keep developing our online capabilities. We're looking to increase our international reach and just grow the number of auctions and items that we sell. We are constantly looking at the next technology to help us do that and make those interactions as slick as possible. But a lot of it is now, things that we're planning to do this year are all put on pause for next year. So the business plan is constantly evolving, but the overall message is to just keep growing and expand internationally.
I guess one thing that, which you just mentioned about, you've got with the online events versus the physical events that some people might not be able to get to. You can have people tuning in from all over the world, or joining where they might not otherwise be able to join. We have a question here. Do you think that online auctions will ever replace physical auctions when we are no longer in lockdown? I think looking a bit further ahead than just kind of a year from now.
I don't think so. I think that our auctions are a bit of an anomaly, because we turn our auctions into events more than a place for the trade or galleries to come and exchange items. It's less of an industry, more of the events and first-time buyers and energy of the cutting edge of contemporary art mixed with these young collectors wanting to come and build their collections. So we will always encourage that physical enjoyment. And you do see it. You see people coming along to these auctions and couples coming along, nudging each other, getting excited, waving their hands. The very language that some of our buyers use. And if our buyers are watching now, then I'm fascinated to know why every time you speak to a buyer and say, oh, congratulations with that. And they go, oh yeah, you know, I won that one. Like, you didn't win it. You're going to pay for it. It's not a, you know, it's not a raffle. But there's this element of competition, an element of excitement that the event of buying in a physical auction adds to the provenance, adds to the history of the object. So when it's at home and you've got your friends around for supper, you go, oh, there's, you know, we bought it in an auction, it was lots of fun. For the crowd that we work with and deal with, you know, they won't just sit there and listen to Spotify. They will buy tickets to go and see the band playing at the gig. They won't just sit at home and order takeaway. They'll go to the restaurant and they'll go to the pop-up bar. It's a physical event. And for us, I know that we will always have the physical auctions. But yes, the online elements will benefit from, so we'll live stream at the same time. There'll be certain times when we'll do online only because it's more suited for that category of object. So for instance, we're doing a sneaker auction, of sneakers that are customized by famous artists, and also a skateboard auction with skate decks customized by well-known artists. Things like that are probably more suited for an online only auction, whereas painting, sculpture is more of a physical event.
The one, when we were chatting about this last week, the auction that I thought was really cool was the Fender guitars auction. So yeah, I thought that was a really fun idea. We have a question here from Peter Templey. Thank you, Peter. I think this is probably the last question we have time for. He says, have you changed the way that you authenticate artwork that you are selling and how you affect the asset ownership transfer?
So we are, again, not disrupting, but enabling new areas of the art market, because we don't actually work in the secondary market. Most auction houses, in fact, all auction houses work in the secondary market, which means you're selling second-hand goods. So the artwork's been sold once already before. So collectors selling their artworks at auctions. What we've done is change that, and we work directly with artists. So all our artworks actually come straight from the studios of the artists. So authenticity isn't a problem with us because it's coming straight from the artist. But challenges that we do have online are quality of the artwork, and that's one thing we're really having to do more work with online. We've seen a lot of artists are incredible at creating Instagram aesthetically pleasing artwork. It looks brilliant in a little square format on that feed on Instagram, and you think they're the best thing since sliced bread. Then you see the work in person, and actually it's done on a really flimsy canvas. It's not got that aura that you really expect from seeing a beautiful artwork, and the quality just isn't there. So that's the one thing that now that we can't go to the graduate shows, now that we can't go to the exhibitions to see the artworks in person because of lockdown, we're having to ask for much more photographs and details of the artwork, so we can get that feeling of what it's like to hold it, because we're responsible to then sell that on to our clients. So we do primary market, so straight from the artist, so the authenticity is fine, but we're having to work harder and making sure the quality control is there.
Thank you. I've actually just been told we've got time for one more question, so we'll do one more question before we wrap up. So we have a question here from Word Things Services. Did you spend any time researching the best online platform for what you're trying to achieve? And given the benefit of hindsight, are you happy with it, or will you look for a new one? We are constantly looking for the best, and always open for ideas. So if you've got any suggestions, then do let us know. But we also we're finding that some of these platforms just don't match the ambitions that we have, and we want to do much more than they can do. Being a small team with huge ambitions and not really working in the most conventional way. Another example of that is not just doing the primary market artists. We actually don't charge any buyer's commission. Most auction houses charge, it's a hammer price, so it comes down in the auction at
£2,000. Then there's 25% commission on top. There's VAT on that commission. Then there's artist resale rights. There's lots of added fees that have put people off. So we don't actually charge any buyer's commission. What you bid is what you pay, because we wanted to open it up to more people and make auctions more normal. So our ambitions are slightly different to the traditional live streaming platforms that are there. So we're always open to ideas.
Well, thank you so much for that, Tom. That's all we have time for. So I will hand back to Emma, but thank you so much, Tom, for joining us this morning and for sharing your insight. This will be going up on our YouTube. So if anyone wants to rewind and hear something that Tom said earlier, then that will be going up on our YouTube. But Emma, back to you.
Thank you, Tom. That was wonderful. I had to go onto mute to make sure that I didn't laugh at some of those things you said, but I think many of the larger businesses that we work with as members and indeed as partners can learn a lot from how you've worked in a very, very rapid way, and indeed how you supported your fan base and your customer base and looked to really support your business as well. So I hope you've all enjoyed today, and please do join us at Chief Disruptor Live virtual on the 2nd of June. This very much is where we bring our members together, just as Tom said, to make sure that those people really going through struggles can really be supported, can look to pivot, and actually to have actual insights and indeed to create strategies, which is fundamentally what we're all about.